Have you ever been curious about the origin and history of Cupertino, California? Well, my name is Charles Bedord, and my guest today may be able to answer many of your questions. Stay tuned and learn all about the Cupertino Historical Society. My guest today is Ms. Donna Austin, President of the Cupertino Historical Society. Donna, welcome to The Better Part.
Thank you, Charles.
Can you tell me a little bit about yourself, please, and what brought you to Cupertino?
I was born and raised in the Santa Clara Valley. I was born in the old O'Connor's Hospital on San Carlos, which has been relocated to O'Connor's present place. But
that's in San Jose, right?
No, it's unincorporated.
Oh, okay.
Burbank. So when somebody said, "Where were you born?" Burbank, not Southern California, but right there, and it's still unincorporated.
Interesting.
The Sears Roebuck took it over, and they had palm trees through it was a beautiful area, and I always told people I was born in Sears Roebuck. But now it's a super Safeway. I came to Cupertino, though, after I was married and had children because of the wonderful schools in Cupertino, and it's a beautiful place. I love where we live, and our libraries, our schools, everything.
Yeah, people still come to Cupertino for the schools.
Right. Oh yeah, I think that's a big selling point for
schools
living
and the hillsides
and jobs.
And jobs. That's right.
A lot of jobs.
So tell us, what is the Cupertino Historical Society, and when was it founded?
It was founded in 1966 by Louis Stockelmeyer, who was a marvelous man. He was an engineer, a historian. He was involved in the Cupertino Improvement Club that was instrumental in getting the city incorporated. He was an orchardist, and when he said he'd like to be remembered for is his orchards. So he's just a marvelous man, and he was the first president of the Cupertino Historical Society.
Okay. Can you tell us, how has the society changed over time since it was originally founded?
When it was originally founded, it was a society, Cupertino Historical Society Incorporated. Now it's Cupertino Historical Society and Museum. And in the early days, they met in people's homes. They talked about history. They shared artifacts. They wanted to preserve people's stories, and that's what history is all about. As we went through, in 1990, the city dedicated an area at Quinlan for our museum. And they believed that since we were representing their history and preserving it, they thought this would be a great community asset.
So it started very informally then, just people going from one home to another and so on.
Having potlucks, and it was a society that enjoyed history and preserved it and wanted to keep it going.
Now, Mr. Stockelmeyer, he was a part of that then?
Oh, very much so.
Yes, because now when I hear the name Stockelmeyer, I think primarily Stockelmeyer School.
That school was named after him because he was so important in our Cupertino history.
I never really understood how he's associated with the history of Cupertino that way.
His great-granddaughter was teacher there. And
oh, she was?
Yes, and Stockelmeyer, Ms. Stockelmeyer, she's kept that name, even though she's married and has children too.
How is the society administered today? How's it run?
We have a board of directors. I'm president. I do have a co-president, Jane Alvarado, and then we have 16 board members. We work in groups. We meet monthly. We work in a lot of groups like collections, finance, fundraising, and that's how we accomplish a lot of our
So you have a
goals.
large number of people involved in that thing.
And they're wonderful. It's a wonderful board. We really work hard, and we're trying to gather histories, preserve history, and share it. And we want to coordinate with the city activities like the tree lighting or Diwali festivals or any of the celebrations, because history really is a celebration of what we've done in the past and what we're doing. We're making history right now.
Do you recruit board members, or do people?
Yes, we do. We're always looking for, and we like a diverse group that represents every area of our society. I just met the granddaughter of Paul and Eddie's. Paul was the
you did?
Paul was the granddaughter, and Eddie was her father. And we've worked up. We're going to have a history night at Paul and Eddie's in the spring. So there's history everywhere, and it's different. It's not just battles and dates and numbers, but it's people's stories.
That's interesting. Now, Paul and Eddie's, I know exactly where it is. That
Of
looks
course.
Like was that always a bar, or was it?
We have photos from 1940, and then in 1970, and then today.
1940s, really?
Yeah, and before that it was a little liquor store, I think. But it's been there for a long time.
Because it looks like it might have started as a hotel or something.
No,
it looks to be a two-story building.
Upstairs,
on the
yeah, it is
inside.
2 stories. Upstairs, there's no bathroom or anything. It was used for storage upstairs.
I see.
So it's really and at one time, Cupertino had bars on every corner. There was a Vic's drive-in. There was a billiards, Stella's. There were just bars everywhere because people didn't have computers or places to gather, so they would go stop in a bar. And a bar is different from what we have now, is usually attached to a restaurant or to a hotel. You don't just have a bar that you just go to without eating or something. And this one, they
now
don't.
you have
They
to
have no
Wi-Fi,
food.
don't you?
Yeah, they have no food involved. So.
Are Paul and Eddie still alive?
No, they're not. They're not. The granddaughter is. I'm going to have her talk, and the owner of the bar, one of the co-owners of the bar, I'm going to have her talk about what it's like today. And they get a lot of Apple employees and people that come in. It's a social group. They have pool tables and they have darts and different things. So it's just evolving, and history is an evolution, really, of when we learn more about.
Well, it seems like a very historical building. Every time I look at it, I was kind of wondering how that, what's the history behind that? Well, when was that built, and what's it like in there? So.
Well, you come to our event and you can find out.
So tell me, how is this historical society funded?
Oh, that's a lot of fundraising, a lot of hard work, blood, sweat, and tears, I guess. We did get we do have an endowment fund, and we can use the very small part of that, and that keeps us going.
Now, when you say an endowment fund, is this private individual money from money from the city, or?
No. We also get grants from the city to help support us, and then we have an endowment that was left to us for the purpose of only using it to not the principal, but just the interest as a source of income.
I see.
So, it's just one of those things that we struggle with. We do put on a lot of different fundraisers, and we're having an annual fund drive right now, and that helps support us, pay for our employee, and we have mostly volunteer work that is done.
Now, the society is located in the Quinlan Center, correct?
Correct.
And you're open, your hours are?
We're open Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. And if you call ahead, we can open up for you. Our employee is there 5 or 6 days a week.
Okay, that's great.
She's our executive director, Ragini, who does such a wonderful job of keeping us going.
Now, can you tell me a little bit about some exhibits that you've had at the Cupertino Historical Society?
Well, this year, and we started off with the Christmas in Cupertino, and we had old-fashioned ornaments and just beautiful things, and we made it coincide with the tree lighting that Cupertino has and Santa, and we had over 500 people come through.
500, that's pretty good.
And that we could count. There were so many. We gave out little candy canes. Kids drew, painted, colored pictures, and people just really enjoyed that exhibit. That came down, and then we put on the 10 Elements of Chinese Culture, a beautiful exhibit. We had Steve Ting, who donated a lot of the items. People brought in things, plus we had from our collection a lot of things. And we had tea pouring ceremonies, calligraphy. It was just really interesting and very popular, and it went with our Lunar New Year. And we had a lot of visitors come in for that. And when that was finished, we did a bee exhibit. And they say bees in history? Yes. Bees were really historical. They go back, and they've contributed to our agriculture through the centuries.
Right.
You know, so it was a very interesting exhibit. We had the Bees Guild come and talk, and we had a lot of interest in that one. And we just did our newest one. It's sort of like a slice of history in Cupertino and what was happening in California at the same time. So we started with Native Americans, basket weaving. It's a beautiful portion, and then we go to the Spanish and the Dianza coming through our city and how it was named, and then we have a real, I was going to say live, but he isn't live, bear that's been stuffed, and he's beautiful. And
is that a grizzly or
it's the California
black bear?
Brown bear, and Gail says it's a grizzly. Then we have the section where the pioneers came, and Elijah Stevens came over 2 years. He led a group 2 years before the Donner Party in 1844. And everyone that came through lived, and they had some births. Where the Donner Party 2 years later really ran into problems. The group came to, or they settled in our area. Murphys went to Sunnyvale, and the Murphys went to Sunnyvale, and Elijah came down into the Blackberry area, and he owned all the land around there. And he was kind of a fun guy, very colorful. When he left the area, he said it was just too darn crowded.
Now, did he come over by himself, or was he part of a?
No, with the land, when he settled in it, he was never married. He had no children. He seemed to be a loner. On his farm, he had a guy that was trying to invent a perpetual motion machine.
Oh yeah,
I remember
we still are today.
And we still are. He hasn't gotten it done, but that was one of his things. And he was friends with the McClellans, and the daughter talked him into having his picture taken. So it's the only picture of him, and it's the one that we have there in the museum. And one of the things he liked to do is catch the rattlesnakes, because there's a lot of rattlesnakes, and we still have rattlesnakes in the area.
Now, let me catch up just a little bit. When you say McClellan, this is the McClellan that we associate with McClellan Road. Or
And
McClellan
McClellan
Avenue.
Road,
Okay,
right,
okay.
right, all McClellan, right.
Okay.
Our McClellan family owned that. And they were
Uh-huh.
friends with him.
Now, does Elijah Stevens, does he have any connection with Stevens Creek Road?
It's named after him.
It is?
Even though they spelled it incorrectly, yes.
Okay, so that's where that
The
name
B
came
and P,
from.
right. And Stevens Creek Boulevard, Stevens Creek, but before it was Stevens Creek, it was named after St. Joseph of Cupertino. And when De Anza came through, and he camped at this creek in Cupertino, and they said Mass there, and they named the creek after the patron saint of St. Joseph of Cupertino.
Okay.
And our sister city is Cupertino in Italy, where the saint was born.
Now, Cupertino has several sister cities, does it, or just the one official?
Oh, they have 4 sister cities, and Japan and China and India and the one in Italy. But the one in Italy is the oldest. Again, Louis Stockelmeyer took a group over, and they started the sister city then 51 years ago.
Now, when the society puts on an exhibit, how does it decide what it wants to exhibit, and how does it obtain the items?
That's a good question. We have a lot of items in our collection, so we try to utilize what we have. And all of those are cataloged, and we can check through them. The committee, the collections committee, sits down and brainstorms what would be a good exhibit, and how can we make it involve the community. So we really do that first. Then we start going through our collection, and then we ask for items from the community if they have items, and then we put the exhibit together.
Okay. Okay, so the board members actually put it together.
Yeah,
then, right?
they're the.
I see. When you ask for items from the community, do you put advertisements in the paper? Or?
Well, our newsletter, we have a wonderful newsletter, which I didn't bring, but it's really informative.
Okay.
And in there, for example, we asked for Christmas items, any old-fashioned Christmas items that people have. And somebody had a train that was, that they're not donating, but just loaning for the exhibit.
Now, I notice that you brought some items from your exhibit. Can you show us these, please? And
well, one of them is the our incorporation paper. So officially by the state incorporated as a 5013C, and that's really kind of special. We have that hanging in the museum. I took it off the wall to bring it here today. Also, I'm really proud of the gavel that.
Now, the date on this here is what,
1966.
19, that recent, okay.
Oh, okay. And this is the original gavel. And what's interesting is that it says Louis Stockelmeyer, first president, Mabel Noonan, first secretary, and Frank Desmond, first treasury. So it's kind of special. I use that at meetings to get everybody's attention.
To you. That's right.
Right. So it's really fun.
It's nice.
And then, of course, the map of De Anza.
Now, this map shows what here exactly?
Where De Anza started, and where he went through, and here's where he camped at the Cupertino at our creek and named it.
Now, you have so much interesting history here and knowledge about the city of Cupertino and, information in your Historical Society. Do you perform outreach to the community? Do you outreach to the schools, or what do you do in this regard?
Well, we have a traveling trunk program and it's been for years. We had it when it was when they were even just a society, and it's a trunk with all of the things that the pioneers used and how they lived. The hot irons that you put coals in, the button shoes that we were talking about earlier.
That's interesting.
And they take these trunks around to the schools by invitation. The teachers will call and set up an appointment, and then the traveling trunk will go there. So that's one thing. We also had like a preschool came into our museum because they were doing B is for bear, and we had that beautiful bear, so they love that. We have done essay contests in the high schools. We've done, we have history walks that would be great. I'd love to see more of that. But, you know, we're limited because we're such a small little group.
Right.
And there's so much history down at the Stevens Creek Trail along there,
Right.
where the natives camped, where the people, the early pioneers.
Well, you know, speaking of history now, when I talked to you earlier, you gave me some really fascinating couple stories about, I think one involved a cooked snake, if I remember right.
Yes.
If you could maybe share some of this with our audience.
Well, Elijah Stevens, one of the things and we have it posted, he has had a recipe for a rattlesnake, and he would cut off the heads, hang them, and let the oil, I didn't know if there was oil, but it drained.
Snake oil.
And the snake oil he used on his arthritis.
You're kidding.
No, it says it right in there. And then what he did is he would cut it up, put it in egg and breadcrumbs, and fry it. He said it beat frogs any day. And that was fun. So, you know, we had bears, and we still have cougars and puma and deer, and we have a lot of wildlife in our still. And so I think that it's just a fun place to live. I love Cupertino.
Well, tell me a little bit about the Society's plans for the future. Where do you see the Society going over in the 10 years or so? What would you like to see happen?
Well, I'd like to see us work more closely with the city and their events and their programs for educating and the populace, the people. And I'd like to see us down at McClellan. There's a old barn there, and they tell me that we'd have to raise it up above the floodplains. That would probably cost $1 million, and then take the barn down piece by piece, the way Apple did with the Glendenning barn, and then build a modern two-story building inside of it, and then put the barn back around it so that it looked just exactly like it is. And it would be a great place for classes, for interaction with history, weaving, and history walks. And
so do you see the Society, let's say, staying in Quinlan and having a second site at McClellan then?
Yeah.
So it's two sites.
Right.
So what can the individual citizens of Cupertino do to help support the Society? What would you like to see people who reside in Cupertino do?
Well, I first of all, a lot of them don't even know about us. So if they knew about us, it would be wonderful. Have them come in and visit our museum. Join our organization. That really does help us. The membership dues, and if you became part of that, you would get the newsletter. You would also be involved, get invited to our different activities that we have, barbecues and
that would be fun, yes.
Paul and Eddie's and all of that. So becoming a member, you'll be aware of what's going on. Although we do try to get it published also in the Courier,
right.
And getting involved, a volunteer. We'd love volunteers for the museum, so we could keep it open all the time, and we need volunteers to help us with fundraising or any of that. So it would be wonderful, and board members. If there are board members that think they have some ideas, we're right there.
Now, does the Society have a website or a principal contact person?
Yes, we do, and I have that on a card, and we have a web page, we have our phone number, and we welcome people that have questions. A lot of people want to know the history of where they live, or the families. A lot of family histories we have.
Well, I found it just very fascinating to learn where these street names came from then.
all of them. The you know, when you look at the first city council, Ralph Lindemeyer, Warren Wilson, John Sayish, Ivan Meyerholtz, Norman Matheson, and they're all street names or schools. There's Meyerholtz School, Stockmeyer School. So they were the, of course, if you only had 1,250 people in 1955, I guess you were pretty limited to who was the movers and shakers, but they were there and they were the founders.
Well, thank you very much.
Okay.
Enjoyed talking with you.
Thank you.
Well, this has been a wonderful show, and I thoroughly enjoyed learning more about the Cupertino Historical Society and the city that I live in. Also, I would like to invite our TV viewers to join us and become members of the Better Part. Visitors are always welcome to attend our meetings held at 10 a.m. on Tuesdays at the Cupertino Senior Center. If you are interested in becoming a Better Part member, please contact the Senior Center for more information or simply attend one of our meetings.